Is Bradley Chubb about to become the Eagles' savior? The trade that could define two franchises' futures and expose Miami's complete surrender. What does it say about your season when trading away one of your best defensive players becomes not just acceptable, but inevitable? When does holding on to talent stop being competitive spirit and start being organizational delusion? For the Miami Dolphins, sitting at a catastrophic 1-5 and watching their season disintegrate in real time, that moment has arrived. And Bradley Chubb, the 29-year-old edge rusher who just returned from a devastating ACL tear to post 4 sacks and 6 quarterback hits through 6 games, has become the centerpiece of trade speculation that could reshape both Miami's future and the Philadelphia Eagles' championship aspirations. With the November 4th deadline rapidly approaching, this isn't just rumor mill speculation anymore. This is a legitimate transaction that makes too much sense for both sides to ignore, and it perfectly encapsulates where both franchises stand at this critical juncture. Let's start with Philadelphia's desperation, because understanding why the Eagles need Chubb so badly reveals just how valuable he's become despite his injury history. The sudden retirement of veterans Darius Smith left Philadelphia with a gaping hole in their pass rush rotation that they simply cannot fill internally. Smith wasn't just a rotational piece. He was a proven edge rusher who commanded double teams, generated consistent pressure, and provided the kind of veteran leadership that championship defenses require. His retirement didn't just hurt Philadelphia's depth chart. It exposed fundamental weaknesses in their defensive line construction that general manager Howie Roseman thought he'd addressed but clearly hadn't. The Eagles' pass rush has been alarmingly inefficient this season, failing to generate consistent pressure without resorting to frequent blitzes that leave their secondary vulnerable. That's a death sentence in today's NFL, where elite quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts' divisional rivals, and potential playoff opponents will absolutely shred defenses that can't pressure with 4 rushers. Philadelphia's defensive identity under coordinator Vic Fangio is built around generating pressure up front while playing sound coverage behind, but that system completely collapses when your edge rushers can't win one-on-one matchups. The numbers don't lie. Philadelphia's defense has regressed significantly from their Super Bowl contending form, and the pass rush decline is the primary culprit. Enter Bradley Chubb, who represents exactly what Philadelphia desperately needs: a proven pass rusher with elite athleticism, extensive experience in Vic Fangio's defensive system, and the ability to make an immediate impact. That last point about Fangio cannot be overstated. Chubb played under Fangio in Denver and again in Miami, meaning he already knows the system, the terminology, the techniques, and the expectations. There would be zero learning curve. He could literally arrive in Philadelphia, install the playbook on the plane ride, and be fully operational by Sunday. That kind of plug-and-play capability is incredibly rare in mid-season trades and makes Chubb exponentially more valuable to Philadelphia than a similarly talented player from a different defensive system. Chubb's 2025 performance has been nothing short of remarkable considering he missed the entire 2024 season recovering from a torn ACL, one of the most devastating injuries a pass rusher can suffer. ACL tears often rob edge rushers of the explosive first step and lateral agility that make them effective, yet Chubb has returned looking like his pre-injury self. 4 sacks and 6 quarterback hits through 6 games projects to roughly 11 sacks over a full season, which would represent elite production from any edge rusher, let alone one coming off major knee surgery. That performance should silence any concerns about his health and prove he's fully recovered and capable of sustained high-level play. The contract situation makes this trade even more attractive for Philadelphia. Chubb signed a massive extension with Miami in 2022 that runs through 2027, but here's the critical detail. There's no guaranteed money remaining after this season. That means Philadelphia could acquire him, evaluate his fit and performance over the rest of 2025, and then have complete flexibility to either keep him for 2 more years or release him without any dead money penalty. That extraordinary risk mitigation for the acquiring team. You're essentially getting a 2-month rental with the option to extend it 2 more years if it works out, but with zero financial commitment if it doesn't. Howie Roseman has built his reputation on exactly these kinds of team-friendly contract structures, and Chubb's deal fits that philosophy perfectly. From Miami's perspective, trading Chubb represents the clearest possible signal that they've given up on 2025 and are planning for 2026 and beyond. At 1-5 with a brutal remaining schedule, The Dolphins' playoff hopes are mathematically alive, but realistically dead. Every additional loss makes the eventual organizational reckoning more severe, and the case for becoming aggressive sellers more compelling. Chubb is exactly the kind of asset Miami should be shopping. A productive veteran on an expiring deal from a guaranteed money perspective, who can fetch significant draft capital from a contending team. Holding on to him serves no purpose if Miami isn't competing, and every indication suggests they're not. The reported compensation, a second-round pick, possibly with additional future considerations, represents fair value for both sides. Philadelphia gets an immediate impact player who could be the difference between a first-round playoff exit and a deep run. Miami get a premium draft pick to help rebuild their roster and address the massive talent deficiencies that have become painfully obvious this season. Second-round picks are valuable commodities that frequently become quality starters, and for a rebuilding team like Miami, accumulating as many of those picks as possible accelerates the timeline back to competitiveness. The Vic Fangio connection cannot be emphasized enough because it transforms this from a standard trade into a reunion with massive upside. Fangio knows exactly what Chubb can do, how to maximize his strengths, and how to scheme around any remaining limitations from his injury. That familiarity breeds trust and allows Fangio to deploy Chubb in situations where he's most effective immediately, without the typical adjustment period that accompanies mid-season acquisitions. For Chubb, returning to a coordinator who knows his game and has a proven track record of developing pass rushers should be incredibly appealing and could extend his career by several years. Philadelphia's championship window is right now, which justifies aggressive moves that sacrifice future assets for present-day upgrades. The Eagles have an elite quarterback in Jalen Hurts playing at the peak of his powers, a talented roster across the board, and realistic Super Bowl aspirations. But the NFC is absolutely loaded with contenders. San Francisco, Dallas, Detroit, and others all have legitimate championship credentials. Philadelphia needs every possible advantage to separate themselves from that pack, and adding a proven pass rusher like Chubb could be exactly the difference maker that tips the scales in their favor come January. The timing of this potential trade is critical because the November 4th deadline is rapidly approaching, and both teams need to make decisions quickly. Miami needs to evaluate what kind of return they can realistically get for Chubb and whether holding him through the deadline serves any purpose. Philadelphia needs to identify their target, negotiate terms, complete physicals, and integrate Chubb into their defense, all of which takes time. Every day that passes without progress is a day of opportunity cost for both franchises, and the pressure to act decisively is mounting. Miami's broader fire sale mentality makes Chubb just one piece of a larger organizational reset. Jalen Phillips, Devon Achane, Jalen Wright, and potentially others could all be available if the price is right. The Dolphins are staring at a top 5 draft pick in 2026, a likely complete coaching staff overhaul, and serious questions about their franchise quarterback's future. Trading Chubb would be the first domino in what could become a wholesale roster teardown, and it would signal to the league that Miami is open for business and willing to deal anyone not part of their long-term core. The salary cap implications favor Miami significantly in this scenario. Moving Chubb's contract off their books frees up substantial cap space that can be rolled over into 2026 and used to rebuild through free agency. The Dolphins are going to have massive cap space next offseason regardless, but every dollar they can add to that total increases their flexibility to address multiple positions simultaneously. That financial flexibility is crucial for a team that needs to overhaul significant portions of their roster and can't rely solely on the draft to fix everything. Philadelphia's locker room would absolutely embrace Chubb's arrival. The Eagles have a strong veteran presence and a culture that values toughness, production, and winning above all else. Chubb checks every one of those boxes and would immediately earn respect from teammates through his work ethic and on-field performance. There wouldn't be any awkward adjustment period or questions about fit. He'd be welcomed as a reinforcement they desperately need and expected to contribute immediately. The NFC playoff race implications make this trade even more significant. If Philadelphia adds Chubb and he helps them secure a higher playoff seed or win an extra game or 2 down the stretch, that could be the difference between hosting playoff games and traveling on the road. Home field advantage in the playoffs is enormously valuable, and teams will sacrifice significant assets to improve their postseason positioning. Chubb could literally be worth the difference between a Super Bowl appearance and a divisional round exit, which justifies whatever draft capital Philadelphia has to surrender. Miami's fan base will hate this trade if it happens, because Chubb represents everything they want in a player: toughness, production, leadership, and commitment to the organization. Trading him feels like betrayal, like giving up on players who've given everything to the franchise. But that emotional reaction, while understandable, ignores the cold business reality that keeping Chubb while losing games serves nobody's interests. He deserves a chance to compete for a championship, and Miami deserves to maximize his trade value while it still exists. Sometimes the right decision is a painful one, and this is absolutely one of those situations. The next 2 weeks will reveal whether the speculation becomes reality or fades into background noise of trade deadline rumors that never materialize. But all the incentives align for this deal to happen. Philadelphia desperately needs pass rush help. Miami desperately needs draft capital and a fresh start. And Chubb deserves a chance to compete for a championship rather than suffering through a lost season in South Florida. If Howie Roseman and Chris Greer can agree on compensation, this trade gets done, and both franchises' trajectories shift dramatically as a result. What's your assessment of this potential blockbuster? Should Philadelphia go all in and surrender a second rounder for Chubb? Or is that too steep a price for a 29-year-old coming off major injury? And for Dolphins fans, can you accept trading away one of your best offenders? Or does loyalty to players who've given everything to the franchise matter more than draft picks? Drop your unfiltered takes in the comments and smash that like button if you believe Miami needs to embrace the rebuild and start accumulating assets immediately. We'll be tracking the situation obsessively until the deadline passes. See you in the next one.